What's up guys, back with another episode here. So in this video, I am going to be focusing all my attention on wiring. So I have my engine in, I have all the plumbing, I have my fuel system ready to go. Now I just need to get everything wired up and get it ready to test start. So I'm super excited right now. So as you guys have seen in the previous videos, I have already been working on my wiring for some time now. So I've mainly just been trying to take care of all the really time-consuming, boring stuff that you guys probably don't want to see anyway. So at this point in time, what I've gone ahead and done so far is taking the factory harness and stripped off all of the factory looming and got it down to the point where it's basically just all bare wires. So in the other videos, I'm pretty sure you guys saw the wires all over the engine bay and everything, that they're all just bare wires. So obviously they are not going to stay like that. So another thing that I have done as well is I have removed a lot of the wiring and a lot of the connectors and relays and stuff for the AC and heater, some like power steering stuff, and just some of the stuff that I'm obviously not going to be using, and I obviously don't have a place to connect it. So I have taken a lot of wiring out of the harness already, and then from there I have kind of started the process of a wire tuck and kind of just rerouted some wires here and there. So since I have already done a lot to the wire harness and cut out a bunch of wires and connectors and rerouted stuff, I want to test it out and make sure that it is actually going to work before I loom everything and all that stuff. So what I've done is just kind of roughly mounted it and connected it on my chassis. So it is just kind of a mess, and it's roughly mocked up where it is going to go, and that is just so I can test start it. So once I establish that the wiring is working and there's not an issue with what I've done so far, then I could take it the next step and kind of like customize the harness and build kind of like my own custom harness out of the factory harness. And hopefully I can make it look a lot better than it was and just be a little bit more clean, kind of tucked out of the way. And the main thing is to just simplify my wiring and to just get it straightforward, straight to the point, and have only the things that I need for the car to work. And that's basically it. So I'm gonna get over there now and show you guys what I'm working with. Alright, so this is where I am currently at with the wiring. So you can kind of see there's a huge mess in here, and yeah, it's just looking like a big nest of wires and stuff, and I know a lot of you guys are probably getting anxiety and losing your mind over this, but it's pretty straightforward actually. I mean, basically all I've done so far is just went through and stripped off all like the factory looming and stuff for the whole entire wire harness. So I basically have it to the point where it's all just like bare wires, all the wires just by themselves. And the reason why I did this is just so I can make it easy for myself whenever I come across something that I know I need to take off, or you know, like cut the wire or reroute the wire a different way. So if everything was loomed up and I were to, let's just say this right here, this connector, and I wanted to reroute it to this side of the steering column, you can see if it was all wrapped up, it would be really hard to get just these single wires by themselves over here, you know. So basically what I went ahead and did is I just put zip ties on all the areas where there's branch points. So I kept all of the factory branch points throughout the process of stripping all the looming. So at this point it's pretty close to the factory routing. You know, you still have the harness that's on this side that goes to the back and powers the rear lights, the brake lights, and all that stuff. And I am planning on keeping the dash fuse box in this factory location since it is kind of tucked up over here. So yeah, so now I'm just going to go ahead and walk you through some of the things that I went ahead and already did to kind of like change the wire harness. So yeah, let's kind of get to those things. So the main thing you're going to notice is in the engine bay. And yeah, obviously if you see in the engine bay, there's no harness coming out of this hole right here. And there's no harness coming out of that hole, and the fuse box is not in the engine bay anymore. So basically what I want to do, what the plan is, to route all of the wires through where the heater core hoses used to go through, and that's kind of what I've done so far. So I've kind of gotten all the wires that go like this and kind of meet up in the middle. I've just kind of gotten them and rerouted them from that point and made them loop back this way to come out there. So yeah, that's kind of why this is really looking messy here. But it is pretty straightforward. I mean, right here is TPS. These are all the injectors up here. The only other sensor I have over here that I'm missing is the air intake temperature sensor. So, I mean, I have all the sensors right here ready to go. Another thing I did do as well is in the CB7s, they do come with a external coil, ignition coil. So with that, I actually deleted the external ignition coil, and I went with the distributor that has the coil inside built in. So the only thing that you need to do to switch that out is you just take the connector that originally connected to the coil, and you can put a fuse, and what that does is basically just loops it. This right here, this was just temporary, just so I can test fire it and make sure that this actually works. But yeah, and since it does work, then I could actually go through and reroute these wires and make it so that they don't even come in the engine bay. So that should clean it up a bit. So I did already go through and I put these sensors right here on the oil sandwich adapter, or the oil filter relocation. So right here, this is oil temperature sensor, and then that's an oil pressure sensor. So I'm basically going to wire those up. Boom, they're going to come out here, and then they're going to go to the other wires that are tucked. And then, oh yeah, and that brings me to the next part, which all of these wires that go and power like the headlights, the horns, turn signals, all that stuff, I did route them through here. So yeah, these will kind of be routed and be underneath the fender, so they'll be tucked out of the way. And then with the fuse box right here, I have fuse box mounted inside. I haven't quite 100% figured out how I'm going to mount this, but the idea right now is I might get like an aluminum plate and just kind of mount an aluminum plate on here where the factory AC components used to go. So yeah, so that's that. And I mean, pretty straightforward stuff. So then from here, another thing I did wire up as well, it's not fully mounted but it's wired, is I have a little battery kill switch, and then along with that I have a circuit breaker. So instead of running a huge fuse where if the fuse ever blew I would have to replace the fuse, I just have a circuit breaker where, I mean, so if it pops, boom, it just flips out and then you can reset the breaker. So that's super cool. And that's like another little kind of like quick kill switch, honestly. So if you ever wanted like a cheap kill switch, this could pretty much work out for you as a kill switch as well. What else do I have here? Okay, and then over here, if you notice, so this is where the hugest like nest of wires is, and the reason for that is because, like I said, I took the normal harness that runs out the sides, both sides, meets up in the engine bay, and I rerouted them this way so they could all come this way, go like that. So a lot of these wires are a lot longer than they need to be, so they're kind of snaked around, you know, kind of looped. So that's why that just looks like a complete nightmare there. So don't worry about that. Obviously, whenever I go to actually start building the harness, that is all going to be cleaned up. Another thing I did as well is the resistor box for the injectors. I have this inside as well, so I think I'm going to mount this around where I mount the circuit breaker and the fuse box and all that stuff. And then this thing, I want to mount it kind of in the dashboard, kind of like where the cigarette lighter used to go. So that is where I'm thinking that's going to go. But yeah, I have to first, so the thing that I'm really waiting for right now is getting the little metal plate where I'm going to actually mount all of these components here. Once I have that plate and I know the positioning of this stuff, then I could actually get measurements for all the lengths of the wire harness, and I could make note of that stuff, and that's going to come in handy for when I'm actually like building the harness, because then I know exactly what lengths I need to go for each section, you know. So the battery is usually located in the engine bay right there, over there on the passenger side. I'm actually going to be running a Odyssey PC680 battery. So that's going to be mounted somewhere in the rear passenger area, either on the floor right here or like in the rear seat area. And yeah, it's pretty simple. The whole idea is, you know, you have the positive terminal, boom, positive wires going down, goes to the circuit breaker over to the kill switch, and then from the kill switch it branches off. One side goes to the starter, one side goes to the fuse box, and fuse box powers the whole car. So really straightforward stuff. Alright, and really quick, for those of you guys who are kind of like planning on doing a wire tuck on a CB, or just kind of want to get a better idea for the wiring under the dash and all that stuff, I just kind of wanted to show you guys this. So I do have a donor CB7 chassis, and this is just kind of like a second harness that I have. This is why I am just like stripping apart my harness without any worry, just because I do have a spare just in case I need an extra connector, or I need to kind of like reference the way it was originally routed and all that stuff. So I just kind of wanted to walk you guys through this and just kind of show you guys like how the harness goes, and you know, hopefully this helps you out. I'll start off with the mess of it, kind of like the driver's side part. So this right here is going to be the driver's side fuse box. So fuse box, all this stuff is going to be the stuff that goes underneath the like steering column, like underneath the cluster basically. So there's just random things like the main harness, the beeper, and just all this random stuff. Then from here you got like the main part that kind of goes behind the firewall basically. Then it routes to the dash harness, and then this was an automatic, so there's like some stuff for the auto shifter. Then it kind of keeps going this way, and this is going to be where your ECU is. So this is already on the passenger side of the car. This is the auto transmission control unit thing. Over here, this is going to be where it goes up to like your like AC blower components and all that stuff, which I've already cut out of my harness. So right here it already goes through the firewall into the engine bay. So this part right here is where it attaches to the fuse box, and then this is where it actually connects to the engine harness. And then the engine harness would be over here in the middle and also connect to this side. And then over here, this is kind of where it goes to like the headlights and all that stuff. And if we go back to the driver's side fuse block, then you have where it goes into the engine bay right here, and then it goes over here to the lights and stuff up front. So other than this harness right here, I'm not really going to show you guys too much of the other stuff, just because I'm basically keeping the rest of the harness pretty much the same. So the main thing that's getting changed is obviously like this area right here and the engine harness. So those are like the main things that are either like getting rerouted, getting removed, all that stuff, you know. So mainly like the fuse box that should have been in the engine bay is now inside. All of the wires that should be going to the engine harness, kind of like this, are now going through the middle. So it's just like a couple changes to the harness, but then from here, now I'm actually going to be making the biggest changes to the harness, and actually like looming it up, heat shrinking it, all that good stuff. So yeah, so let's get that started. Alright guys, so here we are, and now since I basically have the car at the point where all of the wiring is, I would say, like 90% connected, there's just a couple of like little things as far as like the lights and little electrical things here and there that aren't really connected, but the very important parts are connected. So mainly the engine, everything like that, as far as the sensors and stuff. So this is the really important part that I am currently trying to test right now. So now that I currently have the engine all wired up, all the sensors are wired, I do have the wire harness running through that hole, as you guys saw, and yeah, everything is connected right now. I do have some water in the radiator. I have the alternator connected, fuel lines are connected, oil lines are connected. I did just wire up the sensors for the gauges. So right now I just have them sitting right here, just so I can kind of monitor this stuff. So this one right here is oil pressure and oil temperature, and then this one right here is going to be the water temperature and voltage, which I don't really have the voltage connected right now. I am just going to want to run through those. But the most important thing for right now is the oil pressure. That's the very important one that I want to monitor when I test fire. So if you guys haven't already guessed, right now I am about to test fire this thing. So we will see how that goes. I'm just running through some last minute things and making sure I have everything ready. So I did just plug up the ECU right there. I just need to get the battery connected to the wires. Yeah, and then from there I should be able to test start it. Another thing I'm looking to do as well is put this engine through its first heat cycle. So from there, once I do put it through a heat cycle, I do want to see if the fan will kick in, because I did kind of wire that up. So I want to make sure that the fan will kick in. I want the thermostat to kick in so I can bleed the coolant. Once I do put it through a heat cycle, then I could actually change out the oil. And from there, I could take apart the oil filter and also check the magnetic drain plug just to kind of make sure that the engine is in good health. From there, I'm going to actually fill the engine up with some Motul break-in oil and then run it through the first like 500 miles or so with the break-in oil. And then from there, I'll actually start running the normal oil that I'm going to be running. So I'm just going to continue getting everything ready so I can test start it, and I will get back to you guys once this thing is ready to fire up. Alright, so I just plugged up my Odyssey battery right there, and since I am running the Odyssey battery, since that battery is really small, it doesn't have a very large like reserve capacity. So just for right now, since I'm going to be like cranking it and priming it and stuff like that, and I don't fully know if the alternator's working 100%. I actually just have it plugged up with some jumper cables. I actually just have it plugged up to my Forerunner battery, and I'm just kind of using that. And basically what I did, I just kind of hooked up my gauges, and right now I just have that directly jumping off of the battery right there. So that's getting power. So right here, the little plug for the ignition coil, what I did, I just took the little fuse off that, so there shouldn't be any ignition going through. I'm gonna unplug the fuel pump as well really quick, and then I'm gonna prime the engine, and I'm gonna crank it basically until the oil light comes off of the factory cluster, and then from there I should be able to check the oil pressure gauge, and hopefully I am building some oil pressure, and yeah, we'll check that out. So right now I do have the fuel pump plugged in, and you could hear that turn on, so hold on. So if you guys could hear that, I'm gonna get closer over here. So fuel pump is working. Really quick, I'm gonna unplug the fuel pump just so there isn't any fuel pumping into the engine while I'm cranking it. I'm looking for the oil dummy light to turn off, and at that point, that's when we know we have some sufficient oil pressure built up. Alright, so I have the fuel pump disconnected, and I do have this clutch switch right here, so I do have to click this in order for me to even be able to crank or turn the engine over. So I'm going to go ahead and give that a try now. It's almost like it's trying to crank over from the compression. Getting pretty crazy. And while cranking, I was paying attention to the oil pressure gauge right there, and it was getting to 10 psi just now, just on cranking. So yeah, that's pretty good right there. Pretty happy with that. Alright, so now I can go ahead and plug this fuse back on, and we will have ignition. And I already went ahead and plugged the fuel pump back up, so we will have fuel pressure, and now this engine should start. So yeah, I'm getting pretty nervous right now, not even gonna lie to you guys. Really nervous. I think honestly think I'm more nervous than excited right now, to be honest. So yeah, so I'm just gonna run through a couple last minute things. We'll get this thing fired up. So hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button if you guys are excited to hear this thing. so I'm just stepping back right now because it is really loud, because it is basically like open header right now. But yeah, there you go, it's idling, and yeah.